Happy Monday, sixth graders. Today's lesson is for April the 20th, and I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great weekend. I know it's not like a typical weekend where you go and out and do some fun stuff with your family, but I hope that you were able to relax and not think about school and at least have a little bit of fun. So we're going to start a new chapter today, and we're going to be talking about the Middle Ages in Europe. And this is an exciting chapter. I loved learning about the Middle Ages. I like the castles and the knights and the jousting and all that came with it. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about that. Today's shout out goes to Mac. And so Mac, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having fun, and I miss you. I'd say Mac Attack, but you don't like that. So Mac and Cheese, I do miss you, and I hope you are well. So if you go to page 293 or 292, this is what we're going to be discussing today. So basically 292 to 293. And maybe 294. We're just kind of briefly, since we don't have a test, I'm breaking down regular lessons. So maybe a lesson would be, longer than usual. I'm just breaking it down so the video is shorter, and then also we don't run out of material before the end of the school year. Okay, so if you look at the main focus of the Middle Ages, it's the focus says, and if I were to be at school, I would have someone say, Harmon, read what the focus says. And he'd read, the fall of the Western Roman Empire in AD 476 led to a period in which nobles had much control over their local regions and kings had to rebuild their power. Actually, he'd be reading it facing the other way because he always had to look that way when I taught. So this is what we're going to be focusing on in this chapter. You look at the timeline. If you look at the timeline on the top, we're going to be talking about the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Now, remember, Rome was a mighty, mighty empire for a few hundred years. And everybody wanted to be Rome. Remember, Rome conquered Greece, adapted some of their gods, but they were the ones. And these people were trying, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll stop for a minute, and then I'll tell you. I'm so excited about teaching this. I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. So here we go. Then we have the Middle Ages from 500 to 1500, the Viking invasions of Europe from 800 to 900, Charlemagne crowned the Western Empire, 800, Magna Carta signed in 1215, and the Renaissance begins in 1400. So this is the timeline we're going to be focused on during this lesson, all right? Or the chapter. Okay, so do you have coins? I have coins. I have quarters, I have pennies. Well, if you look at the story, by the way, if you haven't read this, go ahead and read it now. But if you look at the story, you look at the different types of coins they had. People were usually paid in deniers. They're small silver coins similar to America's pennies, okay, or American pennies. And the sous, which are equal to 12 deniers. The livre, is equal to 20 sous. Okay, but Bernard has never seen a livre. So these people are not, can you guess if they're rich or poor? They're probably peasants, they're probably poor. Okay, they could be merchants, but they're not royalty. Right, so the fact that he doesn't know or he's never seen, like me, I've never seen like a black credit card. The black credit card are like people who have a lot of money and it's just a really fancy credit card for millionaires. Okay, I've never seen one. I probably will never see one in my life unless God's miraculously I'm marrying a millionaire, and that's probably not going to happen. But that is just something I'll never see. I'll never see probably a bill that's more than $100. Okay, so this is how he lived. Okay, so after setting aside rent for the Lord of their manor, the family had just enough money to buy a chicken. They typically eat the dark rye bread and pottage, a stew of vegetables and grain they grow around their cottage. Okay, for Bernard, the future looks much the same as his father's. When you are a peasant, just like in the feudal system, there was no way for you to get out of that. You couldn't go up a higher rank. So a person who was a peasant couldn't marry someone in royalty. A little boy, you couldn't wake up one day, a little boy, like, what do you want to do? Like in America, what do you want to do when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a police officer, or I want to be the president of the United States. In America, most little boys and girls, no matter how poor they are, can grow up to be something great and don't have to be poor all their lives. And we hear stories after stories of people who have done that, who grew up in poverty and then basically amounted something great in their life. I mean, just worked really, really hard, and their life is different. I think of people like Oprah Winfrey, and I can't think of other examples right now, but I know her story. And so these little boys couldn't say, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a knight. Or the little girls couldn't say, when I grow up, I want to be a princess. No, because they were going to be a farmer the rest of their life, or a merchant the rest of their life. And they couldn't hope for something better, which is sad, because Middle Ages is also another name of the Dark Ages. It's a time of hopelessness and disparity. Okay? So, let me ask you some questions about this little story, hopefully you read. But what does the chapter focus suggest about the power of kings during this time? The power shifted from the kings to the nobles, right? And they had a lot of control. So the nobles were the ones who, they were like lords of the land. And so like a servant or a serf would have to work the land and then give the money to the servants. To the lords. And the lords would there go and give it to the kings. All right? What might be the reason Bernard has never seen the livery? Because he was poor, and whatever they sold didn't really bring a lot of money to them, right? Why did Bernard's father give a tithe to the priest? Well, a tithe was one of the sacraments in the Roman Catholic Church. They had to give money to the church, and if you didn't, you had this chance of being excommunicated from the church. And being excommunicated from the church meant that you couldn't go to heaven when you died because you had to go to church. So that was one of the sacraments. You gave money to the priest. And this is an earning that you can get to go to church. Now, my church, if I give my tithe, I can give my tithe or not give my tithe, but I'm still welcome to go to church. I'm not paying to go to church. So it's just a lot different back then. And like I said, it had a time of hopelessness, so people did things differently, okay? What news did the priest bring? He brought the news that the Vikings were attacking villages and robbing churches, okay? Vikings were like from Scandinavia, all the way up in Iceland and all that area. Why might the priest place the book in a sturdy chest under lock and key? Well, things that we think are valuable, that we like, we're gonna keep it safe, right? I know maybe your parents have a safe and they keep documents, or they may keep like pictures of you when you were little, that they don't, if in case of a fire, in case of a flood, or in case of a volcano, wherever you live, a hurricane, tornado, that will be safe, your pictures, because you can lose everything, but you can't replace memories of pictures like that. And so he thought this book was important, so he's gonna lock it up because he doesn't want the Vikings to take it and steal it. All right, what does the future mostly hold for Bernard? I've already mentioned that. He's probably gonna be a farmer and be poor and just earn enough money for his family to eat, but nothing else. Okay, how could Bernard change his future if he wanted to? He could escape from the manor and he could remain uncaptive for a year. He could, hide out and pretend that he's somebody else. Okay, and so we already talked about the timeline. According to the timeline, how many years passed from the fall of the Western Roman Empire to the beginning of the Renaissance? Let's see if you can do your math. 924 years is correct. All right, so that is just a basic review, not a review, a preview of what we're going to be talking about. Now tomorrow, Tuesday's lesson, we'll get more into the medieval period and we'll talk more about that. So today's lesson, like I said, is an introduction. It's short. If you want, you can read pages 294 to 295. 294 to 295 to get prepared for what we're going to talk about tomorrow in tomorrow's lesson, okay? I hope you have a great day. I love being your teacher, and I hope you make good choices.